have a favorite hive tool. You guys probably do too. I borrowed some from the farm, so we have plenty of hive tools today. Let me set these over here. Yeah. This was our absolute strongest colony last year. Okay? And it was at one point 4 feet tall with 2 super. Okay? So it was a blustering colony that was packed full of bees, which is what you want to see in the summer, if we all agree. Downside of that is, when you grow that many bees, you grow a larger mite population. So you got to be really on top of your bees. So we're going to take this one apart.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
If you have a relatively strong hive at the end of the summer, I mean, what are the percentages that they'll make it through the winter? I mean, it's good or poor or?
It comes down to when you treat it. Did you eradicate enough mites before you start making winter bees? It's like 10% if you don't count in the mite losses. A 10% loss rate is really great. A lot of beekeepers see around 50% to 100%. And a lot of that comes to bees being stressed by the mite going into winter. So, having said that, going into this hive, I'm going to assume the bees are in here and they're alive at first. I've only cracked these, but it's always better safe than sorry. So when you go in,
Come out with a smoke or anything like that?
not in the winter, they really are not deterred by smoke. When you let the light in and they are alive, they'll come up and they will try to sting you. I found that winter bees don't have as much venom, so it's a little different. So as I open this up, I'm going to take each layer off. So we have our insulating board and then our moisture board. I'm checking for things. So I'm looking for parasites, signs of parasites, whether it be wax moths or hive beetles, anything that shouldn't be there. I'm looking for signs of maybe mice, stuff like that. Because we don't know when officially killed them. Yeah. So, if you guys come up, you can see there's some winter feed here. I cracked this open last week to this point, and my 8-year-old son broke up the sugar for me. This was emergency feed, okay, that was put in here, just in case they ran out of feed. But if you feel this hive, you can barely lift it. Okay?
It means there's no food left.
Oh, it's heavy. It's really heavy. There is a ton of honey in this hive.
Oh, really?
Yes. So that right there tells us we're not looking at starvation issue right off the bat.
So how often, I mean, because I was told that you shouldn't disturb the hive too often in the winter, and how often are you comfortable looking at that?
On a warm day, I like to look down the hive. I like to look in on a warm day, once a month.
It's a warm day, 40 degrees, 50, 40.
Anything 45 and higher, if it's sunny out, you might not even have to look. This will be coming and going. They're making cleansing flights. I only look if I don't see anything. Okay. If we look at the front of this landing board, look in the hole here, in the entrance, it's reduced down. You'll see that you can't see in there, so you know there's a pile of dead bees down there. Okay. They, by default, would be removing those bees on any warm day. And that's what I was talking about, seeing the speckles of bees all around the hive. If they're not doing that, then we should start to think and look. Like my bees at home the other day, I think it was 45, and you can hear them from 15 feet away doing their removing dead bees, flying all over. You could hear the buzz.
You know, mid-December, it was pretty warm out,
Yep.
and we saw a lot of bees dead on the lawn. We were concerned.
It's generally a good sign.
Okay.
So I like to look down and see what I see. One thing that I have done in the past, if I can't see anything, I'll tap, because it will buzz. You can't see anything. So So when you look down in here, all you see is deceased bees spread out throughout the top.
Is that a super full of honey on top there? Or?
Partially full.
Okay.
It wasn't completely full, so we left it on.
So they are all dead.
They're all dead. So, and then you want to look at the bees. You want to see what actually killed them. So this guy looks pretty healthy. She's pretty healthy, right? Her tongue's not sticking out. There we go. If you look, oh, I should have brought a pointer. If you look really, really closely on the left hand, on the side with the wing going out, you will see a mite. Yeah.
He should have brought our right.
Yeah.
There's a little tiny mite on this bee.
Oh yeah.
Is it on this one too?
So that's a bad sign.
I
Now,
have my glasses on.
you will always have mites in your hive, regardless. The mites like to hang on the underbelly. That's why you can't see them when they're alive and they're out of the way. No bee's going to let you flip it over on its back and examine it. But we're going to conduct a mite wash on this to verify the mite load. I have a suspicion around this hive because we treated it in the first week of August, which in the past we've been beekeeping here by committee, which can be good, but as you know, every beekeeper has their own methods. And when you have a committee decision happening, it causes problems. It still has 3 deep on it. That's why it's such a heavy hive.
What'd you say it has on it?
3 deeps. Okay. So this top box we look in doesn't have a lot of bees in it. Break the seal. Now, if the bees were alive, we do not want to break the seal because they cannot fix that. And when you break the seal in the winter, we get a really cold winter or a cold spell again, and any wind, we can potentially kill the bees. Okay. So you can still see we don't have a tremendous amount of anything going here, right? We can see we're starting to get a cluster with these. We want to collect some of our bee friends here. So we're going to need about a half a cup of bees to conduct the proper mite count. Now, if it did die, with my suspicion of having a mite load, so a bunch of viruses, we're not going to find a whole ton of bees in here. We get down to the bottom board, we're going to have about a quarter of the bees that the hive would have had if it would have died of, say, moisture.
So where are they? If they're not infected?
So when a bee gets sick, it doesn't want to make the hive sick, so it leaves, goes out, and it dies.
Yeah.
Yep. So they will remove themselves. So this hive was alive when I looked at him, and so is this hive, and so is that hive. And then we had a real cold spell, right?
Right.
And if they're stressed and you get cold, super cold, and they're not big enough, they can perish.
So are that the mites that kill them, or?
The viruses that are associated with the mites. There we go.
Wow.
There's our bees.
Oh, yeah, they'll never get out that entrance.
They'll never get out, but
What's that?
they also, this hive has tons of gaps in it, like here and there. The wood wear is not perfect.
So is that a little or a lot of bees?
Not on this one. So,
Sorry,
for
can
me,
I ask-
that's not a lot of bees.
That's not a lot.
No.
Okay.
It's about half as many bees as you want in the hive in the winter.
Yeah. Okay.
So we're gonna go ahead
Wow. Half as many.
Interesting to see that, huh?
It's so
Yeah.
so holy. So they can't sting anything, right?
Oh, they still have a stinger.
Oh.
You can sting yourself, I guess.
Yep.
That's right.
Do not smush it. Okay.
This one has a sting.
So if you see this in the winter, you can collect your bees and you can send it off, and they can do some tests for you.
Okay.
One of the things they're going to do is they're going to check your mite count and send it down to get tested. They're going to check for nosema, and they're not going to actually check for any viruses or anything, because that's a much more expensive test. So the way they see the nosema is through a microscope, and the way they check for the mites is with an alcohol wash. So we're going to do the alcohol wash. I'm going to collect the sample because I do have a microscope at home. I'm curious, but I haven't seen any signs of nosema. There's no large quantities of feces in here. You can see some, but it's not at a concerning level. Okay.
What's the nosema?
It's a parasite in the intestine that causes them to.
Like dysentery almost.
So are the mites alive or are they dead too?
They're all dead.
The mites
Without a host, they die. Okay. So our bees aren't moldy, so they haven't been dead long. This is for me for later.
will get moldy
Yeah.
even with the cold?
Yep. Doesn't take much for mold to happen. So
There's probably a little bit of heat from the decomp on themselves. It's just enough for the mold.
So we're going to take a sample. Those of you that, anyone do alcohol washes here? Do you use the mite check thing, the plastic one?
Yeah.
I like these ball jars.
Yeah.
And the only reason is I have 5 hives. I can take 5 samples. And I don't have to wash them immediately. I just put them in with alcohol, set it on the jar, and then after I'm done with the bees, I go sit on my deck, I conduct the mite wash, and they're all labeled.
Isopropyl alcohol?
Isopropyl, this past summer I used ether because I couldn't, or not ether, Everclear, because I couldn't get isopropyl. But I could buy Everclear at the liquor store. So, I'm a fan of alcohol over sugar. I know it kills the bees, but killing 300 bees can prevent you from this. I made it. Super easy. Hot glue, electrical tape, 2 mason jar lids,
Makes sense, doesn't it? Yeah.
You just upside down
and
tape.
1/8. Yep. I only do the tape because I don't like to leak alcohol over my hands. So all we want to do, the mites are already dead, we're just dislodging them. In the summer, they'll sit in the alcohol. I'll leave them sometimes an entire day. You're preserving the bees at that point.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, nice.
There, yeah.
Pretty good too.
So there's 300 bees in there.
How many times did you do the mite treatment this year?
We did it once, because that's what we agreed on as the team.
What'd you do?
We used Formic Pro first week, 2-strip method. Now, problem is they start laying their winter bees in the last week of July, first week of August. So, my opinion, we're too late. At home, I do a soft treatment in the first week of July, and then I come back and treat again in the first week of August.
A
with a hard-
soft treatment?
So I use something that's not aggressive. That by itself is not a good mite treatment. It works down south, but up here in the north, where they have to spend 8 months in the box,
Sure.
it's not a great mite treatment unless you're using it with another treatment later on.
Gotcha.
So I use Hop Guard in July because it's safe with the honey supers on. And I didn't do it one year and I regretted it. So we have our bees.
Oh, God.
Off to the side. So we do want to get the bees out of here at this point because we're going to restack all this, but we're going to look in there because the queen's not going to be on the board here. The queen's going to be in the box. We're going to find her in between two frames with a small cluster of bees around her because of the way they died.
Now, if they froze to death or something, they wouldn't be at the bottom of the hive.
So we'll get it into that
Into
in
that.
a moment. Because when they freeze to death, they stay in the frame.
Yeah.
When they starve to death, they tend to go into the cells and they're sticking out. So this was our first lower box. Okay. So we just want to see what state they were really in. Okay. I'm gonna pull a couple frames here just to see. The lower box is empty, so it tells you they were feeding for a while. So we have pollen on both sides, somewhat on one side, more on the other. Okay, so we know they had pollen. Here we go. So, look what we got going here. So this is the deceased brood. That's what? Dead brood. So this is the lower part of the brood nest. Okay.
So the queen lay eggs during winter?
Well, if the population starts dipping, she'll start laying. It's not good though, because they can't keep heat, and then they absorb more food. It's a death circle. So, granted, in February they start to lay a small quantity of eggs, but this brood is older. So this brood looks like it's probably been abandoned, because if you look at the bees, they're already fairly developed. They're actually bees, they're not larvae in them. They've been chewed open. So this is a telltale sign of diseased larva. So you see the punctures in the cappings, and more chewed off on the back. So of course, when you're doing this, you want to make sure you don't have signs of American foul brood, which would be, the larva would be gooey. Okay. If you find gooey looking larvae, you want to poke it, because there's European foul brood and American. The American will come out with it, like a stringy thing. Look, this guy died just emerging from the cell.
Can I get a shot of that one?
Yeah. And you can tell it's so emerging because look how fresh the hairs are on the back of the bee. It's almost silky.
So, in order to prep this hive for reuse, do you have to remove that comb that has the brood, the dead brood in it?
Some beekeepers will say no, some beekeepers will say yes. For me, look how dark this comb is.
Yeah.
Okay? It'd be a pain in the butt in a year to get this comb out when you have a laying queen in, and that's a lot. Might as well get rid of some of this.
When it's that dark, what does it mean?
It's just been well used. So bees, they go out all over the world and they come and walk all over their comb.
You have a full foundation in there? You have foundation underneath that comb?
This is a black plastic frame. So black.
Got it.
So we have a mix. See how beautiful it's laid out?
That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah. It's hard to get them to start on this stuff, but man, when they do it,
Perfect.
They do it right. And also, you know, it's cold out. You're not breaking the comb. If you had a wax foundation, you did that, it'd be at your feet. Right? So, and then we have some honey in here. Okay. So, what we want to do here is clean out and scrape the frames. We're not going to do it today, but we'll do it for prep work for the hives that have pollen in them. Because the pollen can get hard and the bees won't use it. The honey's fine. This honey is going to be perfectly fine to feed to the bees in the spring. It's going to give them a huge boost. But the actual pollen, will set them back.
I'm sorry, what do you do with that? You're going to scrape it off? Or
I'm going to scrape the frames that have pollen in them and leave the honey frames. Yeah. So here.
When you say scrape, you're meaning removing the entire
Down the foundation, relax.
Oh wow.
Because this stuff becomes contaminated over time. Here's a this is where they laid the brood. You can see how it's darker. Each time they lay the brood, when they go from through their metamorphosis, they're kind of like a butterfly, and they spin a very thin coat of silk, and that gets left in the cell, and the cells slowly shrink over time. Okay, so your bees will get smaller over time if you let it go too long. They can also build up with pesticides and other things from the environment. So recycling your comb on a 3-year cycle is pretty wise. So they say if you take a little each year, you'll always be keeping some fresh comb in there.
And Chris Harp always says that the wax is like the liver in your body. It absorbs toxins and stuff like that. And
that's a good way to think about it. Okay. So. So depending on what's in the other hives will be how I make a decision on what to do with the frames. Because I'm going to want a good mix of fresh frames and some drawn frames, because that way the packages we're going to get in the spring have something to start with instead of having to start from scratch. It just gives us a slight advantage. It also gives you a chance to clean all your frames so everything goes back together well. Mites are all dead. Yeah. So this box is heavy. There is a buttload of honey in there. And it's the middle box. And when we're looking here, we can see a small cluster of bees here, and there's a cluster here. There's a good chance the queen might be in this box. Okay. I know she's not going to be in that box.
Why wouldn't she be in the, is that the bottom box?
That's the top box, the top. And if you look at it, they moved all the honey down.
I gotcha.
And that box actually has some problems in it that we were going to deal with in the spring, and we're going to get rid of those problems.
The reason they moved the honey down,
so they rearranged their hive in the fall. So I don't like to mess with them too much after September 1, because the bees are getting their hive set for survival in the winter. And if you are helping them out by going, oh, they have all their honey in the middle box, in the middle of the box, on the second box, and you go, well, I want to move it so they can try to store some more in the middle, they're still going to just move the honey back. And you're just making them work more.
Right.
So they're actually going to collect a little less. And they're old. And they're heavy. And they're rusty. Or very short staples.
yeah.
Oh, look at that. These are pre-made
Yeah, probably.
Who the manufacturer
Yeah, I
was.
mean, look at the staples they use. They're barely tacked into the wood. Don't get me started.
Sorry.
I bought an air compressor this year just to avoid this problem.
Yeah, we just put the nails on the side.
Yep. Now imagine if your frame did that and you had bees in it.
Beautiful honey then.
Okay. You can see slight surface
So there's honey
mold.
in all of them?
Yeah, this is all honey.
How do you get the honey? How do you get the honey out of it?
Right now it would be a major undertaking because this stuff's cold.
Well, they barely warmed it up. What do you do? Scrape the top off?
You just, in like normal extraction method, uncap it with an uncapping tool, spin it out. This is, in my opinion, this level of mold is inconsequential to the honey.
That's mold.
Slightly. Or wax bloom, one of the two, it's hard to tell. But it's a little,
So if they're,
might be a combination of the two.
if they died of disease, it's just helping the honey.
But it's still edible honey.
The viruses they get don't affect us. And the viruses also don't live without a host very long.
You can use that honey for new hives, right?
Yeah, this year I'm going to feed this all back.
Okay.
Okay.
It's sort of frames back and clean it up in the top.
Okay, now we're getting closer to where cluster was. You can see that they move in some pollen into here. So this might be a frame that we might actually
Can you
extract.
tell if there's pollen in there?
Different colors of orange and yellow, and
This in here?
yeah, that's all pollen right there.
Oh wow.
Okay, so they move that stuff around to match their eating cycle too.
They actually put it on one cell and transfer it to another cell in the hive.
Yeah, they will when they're getting ready for winter time. Once winter sets in, they don't move; they just consume. So you can see they consumed right up this path, where there's no honey.
Yeah.
That's all pollen now.
No, there's no pollen there.
This is the capped yet, or
It's been uncapped.
they didn't do it?
That's water. So they brought water in to drink. Because, you know, they have to dilute out their honey. But that's a little concerning. Brand new queen cup. Maybe we're not going to find Miss Queen. We're going to find her in this frame or the next. So here is how the cluster ended up. Okay, you can see they had brood, they had larvae of different ages. So this hive was crying. Okay,
Is those like the last survivors right there? That's the last thriving cluster to
That's the
say in a
last
sense, or
thing.
Yeah, because you here and here.
so there is a queen in here, I can tell you that. Okay, this is the last of the cluster. This hive was, if it could have been just a little bit bigger, it would be alive. Okay.
Is that capped honey on the right side, or
This is uncapped.
and that's by the corner?
You can see crystallized honey in there, all sorts of stuff happening. We have some brood of different ages here, so they were beginning to rear for the spring. Okay.
How do you tell that
So, good question. So you get some light, you see bigger larvae, you see little larvae, little worms on their sides, you see eggs. Okay. So in this cell you have a little U-shaped larva. In this cell you have a big larva.
Eva.
Right.
Right? And they're nice and white. And look, that's capped larva. This is fresh. Okay? It hasn't even had time to rot.
That happened recently.
Yeah.
And are
This
these,
hive was live a month ago.
It
are
just
these
died.
bees
this
coming
one.
out, or are they?
So these bees went into the cell because they're making a cluster, and then they vibrate their muscles to make warmth. The problem is we had that spike where we got really cold again in February, right? That's when I think these guys bit the dust because they were too small. And all three hives did the same thing, same time.
So you gonna try to find the queen still? Or?
Yeah, I'm hoping she's on the next frame.
Oh, you can see her there.
Fancy. Generally, when they die like this, you find your queen. Here she is. Here's your queen bee. So she was just starting to lay again, so her abdomen's a little smaller, okay, than usual.
I'll stuff. I'll stuff.
So her abdomen's a little smaller than usual, but she just began to lay, so she was just ramping up her egg production.
Is her abdomen different than the other ones?
Yeah.
Will you put queen back
No
again?
stripes and no color to it.
Or at least make its way this way.
Daisy needs to film the queen. So.
Yeah. We have the queen.
Okay. So that tells us this hive
Oh, she's upside down.
population died.
Oops.
Okay. We have a heck of a mite load.
You want to see her?
The queen didn't die, so we know the queen didn't fail. She laid.
Yeah.
They have plenty of food. So, I mean, it's an educated guess, but one can say it died mite related issues.
I'm sorry. Thank you. Okay, want to pass it around? Pass it around, buddy, the other way.
Their abdomens will grow really big when they're laying.
Yeah.
Oh, man,
And she looked small.
Yeah, when their abdomens shrink when they're not laying, and then it gets bigger. That's why virgin queens' abdomens are tiny. Okay, they're hard to tell virgin queen from regular bee.
It's in there, but I can never find it.
Yeah.
If you want to compare,
What about the top of her head?
There's the queen.
if you hold this up to the light, you'll see some queens that are actually were in full egg production. Hold it up so you can see it there. So when I requeen, I take the old queen, I put it in a bottle of Everclear to make a swarm lure. Swarm lure.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So if you're gonna kill the queen because you want to put a new queen in, take her body and make yourself some swarm lure. Use her pheromones.
So you put it in the Everclear, and then what do you do with the Everclear?
You spray it
You
around.
squirt it in your swarm traps. If you want to try to catch your swarms.
Carries the pheromone and then the alcohol evaporates and just leaves the pheromone behind.
Yep.
He's got a few in
there.
here? Oh, yeah. There's a couple of them in there. Yeah. Big.
That's the queen. Yeah.
Oh, no.
And,
It's big.
you know, I can tell you right now, this queen was marked last year, so they did requeen it at some point. So, I mean, you really want to treat no later than the second week of July.
Wow.
What about spring one?
Spring,
Yeah.
as needed.
Only?
That's my opinion. I mean, but you're talking to a guy that uses acylic acid in his hives and at home in December. So I zap them when there's no brood in there with a treatment that'll wipe them out. And you do get a mite drop. So in spring, when you do your alcohol wash, the hives generally have detectable mites. So we kind of took a look at this hive. We have 3 other hives, and if you guys want to get your hands dirty, you're more than welcome to practice on our hives, and I can coach you through what we're looking for. If that's an interest, we can divide up into groups, and you guys can try an alcohol wash. Yeah, sky's the limit on this one.
So if we open up a hive and it's still alive, then we're going to put it back.
If you want, I'll double check.
And then the other thing is, did you put a screen in between?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
You
It's
open up the lid?
8-inch hardware cloth.
Oh, I got it. Nice. Excellent.
Yeah.
Excellent.
You can spend $20 on the fancy one, or you can spend $12 on a box of ball jars. Fill all your bee samples up, and then do the test out of your bee suit.
Right.
I mean, we all like our bee suits,
Yeah,
right?
we have to,
Especially when it's 90 degrees.
Yeah, right.
So. Oh man, I can't wait to get out of my bee soup when it's hot. So. Plus I get to sit on the deck. I'll do it maybe when I'm barbecuing.
No, then I do 1, 2, 5 at a time, and then a break, an hour.
This just speeds up everything, and it'll let you test all of your hives. A lot of people don't test all their hives because it's a lot of work to test all your hives, right? If you're doing it one-to-one like this, you got to clean out the device each time. You got to make sure there's nothing in there. It's just, this is a much easier approach. So, this hive
you can see better too in those glass jars than the plastic one.
You have bees in there that are alive, you don't do anything.
Right.
So let me ask a question here. You have a half a cup of bees. How many mites would be acceptable for a half a cup of bees?
1 or 2.
Yeah. So, half a cup of bees is roughly 300 bees. You want a mite count of in my opinion, anything more than 3 mites per 100 is bad. Super bad, like colonies on the verge of death. Okay. So that means if you have roughly 300 bees, if you want to be real scientific, what they would do down at the testing facility, they would actually count this sample. They would count every bee in there and give you an exact number. This is an approximate game, but I can tell you right now there's more mites in there than I want to see at any time.
This amount of bees.
This is super. Oh, that's nice honey. Yeah, I'm going to be harvesting honey from my dead ones anyway. So but this is all looks like all honey.
Yeah.
Let's see.
Push me out of the way.
Oh yeah, I would.
This is all honey for the
Yeah,
that they stored in there.
Yeah, I'm going to harvest it.
Yeah.
From my dead hive,
Okay.
I'm going to harvest it.
I think could be.
So,
I know it's been kind of
Those with bad backs.
We use this top one.
This is like a feeding board.
right.
Yeah, we just smashed our honey in between the roof.
Covered in dry erase stuff.
Oh, one with the mite?
Where's the mite? It's a little red dot.
Oh, right there on this side of her belly, right? Just behind that one leg?
This is better than leaving no frame in there, because alternatively they're going to fill that gap with comb anyways.
Yes, yes.
And you're not going to get it.
Yes. I don't like it, but it happens by accident.
In a pinch, you do it.
Not yet.
And this is the last, this is the bottom.
Need some bees?
So you'll find a few of the cells then. Is that what, different queens or different seasons?